Inspired by the international bestseller Eat, Pray, Love, Judith Lucy's Drink, Smoke, Pass Out raises the bar, or perhaps lowers the bar, on confessional memoir. As you would expect from Judith Lucy, it's also very, very funny. Judith Lucy, welcome to Booktopia.
Thank you for having me.
What's the connection between your book and Eat, Pray, Love?
My overwhelming feeling when I finished reading it was that I could not relate to Elizabeth Gilbert at all, really. And coincidentally, I have been to the same three countries in the same order. So went to Italy, India, Bali. That was the order, I think. My experiences really could not have been more different from Elizabeth's. Starting off in Italy, actually I think I speak for a few women here when I say that I've actually never had to promise myself to be celibate for a year. That's actually happened on a number of occasions, often when I was desperately trying to have sex. So when I was in Italy, I wasn't really beating men off with a stick. I was travelling with my 70-year-old birth mother, sharing a room, and the only man who came on to me was so short and so white he was virtually a circle. So that was my experience there. India, I got to go to India for the television series I did for the ABC, so that actually was fantastic, but the only yoga I did, you know, the man I did it with was so bored and incompetent, it's amazing I didn't wind up in a neck brace at the very least. And then Bali, the healer that I came across, you know, didn't help me to live a more balanced life. He just massaged my breasts. So I guess I just felt maybe there was some room to write another book that was sort of about spirituality, but that maybe some other people could relate to a little bit more.
What was your greatest fear in writing this book? Because you have not spared yourself. It is incredibly candid.
I have always had this belief, or at least for a long time I suppose, that I think we're kind of all in this crap sandwich together. And I guess my belief is, hasn't everyone gotten drunk and made an idiot of themselves? Hasn't everyone got a pretty nutty family? Look, sure, I have excelled at these things, you know, and most people have had a messy relationship or two. So I guess I just kind of think, you know, if I can tell my story and possibly make other people feel a little better about their own lives, you know, and make some money out of it, then why not?
Now, when it came to discovering sex, you were a bit of a late bloomer, weren't you?
I was. God bless my mother, Anne Lucy. You know, such a great woman, a very unusual woman, so Irish and Catholic. So sex was simply something that was never discussed. In fact, I was reflecting on this the other day for some reason. I remember about the only time I asked my mother any kind of question about sex was I'd come across a sanitary napkin, basically, because the house was full of them. It seemed like every drawer Mum had just was full of them. And so one day I actually just said, what are they? And my mother's response was, "Shut up!" Which was very well adjusted of her. And the only other time, because I remember all my school friends, you know, their mothers were sitting them down and giving them the talk. And I did say to Mum, probably at about 15, when that horse had really bolted anyway, I did say, "Do you reckon we're ever going to talk about, you know, sex or anything?" And she said, "I don't think you're ready." I'm 44 now. She did pass on, you know, over 10 years ago, but that day never dawned, unfortunately, that I was ready for that conversation. So I think all of that, combined with going to an all-girl Catholic school, then I studied a couple of years of theatre arts, where there really were only about 3 straight men in the whole course. All of that meant that, yes, sex didn't really become part of my life till I moved to Melbourne and started doing stand-up comedy.
Judith, one of my favourite bits of the book is when you've embarked on your kind of spiritual quest, of course, like many others before you, you decide that you've got to face the challenge of Vipassana, this silent meditation retreat. Can you just tell us a little bit about the Vipassana experience for you?
Oh, I had become slowly more and more interested in meditation. I just thought, that'll be a good kickstart. Just 10 days of 12 hours of meditation a day. And it really wasn't until the first evening that I suddenly found myself sitting there thinking, what have I done? This is a nightmare. And then the next day, of course, it kicks off at like 4:30 in the morning. And also, for the first 3 or 4 days, I remember just, you've got a bunch of cushions and you're trying to find the right way to sit. And I was dumb enough to think that there was a magic way to sit. No, there isn't. We're just simply not built for, sitting basically in the same position for hour after hour after hour. So no matter what you did, you were in agony. There was no getting around that. And it was just, so sitting there, being in agony. Goenka is the guy who has come up with it, and who basically he was from Burma many years ago. He got these crippling headaches, and he discovered that this form of meditation was the one thing that helped him with these headaches. So he was a very wealthy businessman. He's still alive, I'm almost certain. But he kind of made it his mission to set up these places all over the world, and which is incredible, and walked away from his, life of doing whatever he was doing. And so I did know that going in, but I was not quite prepared for Goenka's running commentary, which is because while there's someone sitting up the front, he basically runs the whole thing through audio tapes, and then at night there's videos of him. And I know this is going to sound incredibly petty, but he's saying some interesting things, but he does not stop coughing, burping, and clearing his nose. And I honestly would sit there just thinking, so enlightenment obviously doesn't mean that, that you know about manners, or that you'd think to get yourself a tissue and some quickies. And he also does this thing where he says everything 3 times. So it was all, if you do not practice, you will be miserable, miserable, miserable. You must work diligently, diligently. To say that it was doing my head in is a bit of an understatement. At one point, I did actually see a young girl. She was, I think, about 20. I couldn't believe how many of the women and men, actually, they were really young. I thought it wouldn't have occurred to me to do this in my early 20s. But she was literally in one of the breaks, walking backwards, crying hysterically and talking to herself. And part of me did think, okay, I'm not going that badly. But then you would have other days where you would just have these moments of, feeling at one with the universe, and you'd feel full of compassion, and you'd hear someone cough and it would break your heart. So, and by the end of it, because another thing that's a little tricky is after the first 3 or 4 days, they have hours of, they're actually called sittings of strong determination, where you really aren't meant to move a muscle for an entire hour. And obviously, they're not going to shoot the hostages if you do, but you really are trying to do that. And so for the first few days, those hours were just even more agonizing than the other hours of the day, because you'd get a pain somewhere and all you'd do would be focus on the pain. Oh my God, the pain. And then it was fascinating how with both the negative thoughts and the pain, the last couple of days, you let it go.
You also have an experience where you kind of connect briefly with some Indigenous women, and you talk about comedy, and I think it's really interesting that they say to you that they get white fella comedy, but that we don't get theirs. What did you learn from that experience?
When I was sitting around with those Indigenous comedians and hearing their stories, that's the other thing. People like me, we think we're being really revealing on stage, talking about, how we've had a few too many drinks and, slept with the wrong person. There was like a 14-year-old kid talking about being a father. There were guys telling their stories about going to prison, So it was, I came out of there feeling like an enormous left-leaning arty white wanker. But it was an amazing experience.
And so now, Judith, is your life framed
Perfect.
by-
It's just perfect.
Well, it's not exactly perfect. Do you get up in the morning, do your yoga without fail, and do you end every day with a meditation? I mean, really, has this stuff been kind of folded into your life now, and does it help?
It has absolutely been folded into my life. Unfortunately, I was only just thinking this morning, why is it though that when you're at your most stressed out, sometimes, you know, when we're all
It's the first thing to go.
and which is of course when you need it the most, it can fall by the wayside. But I certainly try to meditate every day, and I certainly try and do yoga at least 3 or 4 times a week. I try and do yoga every day too. So the reality is, if I'm trying to do both of them every day, I generally do them 4 or 5 times a week. Meditation I pretty much do it close to every day, actually. It's pretty rare for me not to meditate because I've realised that it's just a very good idea for me. I have found that both those things have helped me enormously. But I'm also really quick to add that I know they're not for everyone. I know that some people, you know, and it is very personal. Like I had one partner who, for him, walking was very much a meditation. You know, one of the wonderful people we spoke to in the Spiritual Journey show was this incredible Buddhist nun, and Rabina Corton, and she just thought yoga was hideous. She just said, oh no, I did one of those classes, it was just a bunch of people blowing air up each other's asses. Oh, I thought it was terrible. So while it's those things that worked for me, I guess one of the great things about doing the television series was just seeing how we all deal with life very differently, and I suppose it's made me a lot more, well, just a lot less judgmental of, you know, as long as you're not hurting someone or judging them, then I figure, yeah, knock yourself out, you know, because who the hell really does know what's going on? So whatever works for you. And I should also add, because I did do a gig a few months ago now, and a woman came up to me at the bar and said, oh, I just assumed you didn't drink anymore. Are you crazy? Of course I still drink. Sometimes I still drink quite a lot. But I don't drink anywhere near like I used to. And the difference too is when I get a bit drunk these days, it's because I'm having a good time and I'm out with a bunch of friends, and you know, as opposed to every night just because I probably wasn't that happy.
That's very good to know. Thank you so much, Judith Lucy, or maybe I should just say Om.
Oh, namaste. Thank you.